Hey everyone! So this month's video is a little bit different. If you're here for the more thorough game reviews, I'll be returning to them next time. But in the meantime, I want to talk about Springfield.
It's a hell of a town.
Both the acclaimed 2003 release The Simpsons Hit and Run and the more or less forgotten Simpsons Game from 2007 contain the closest things to an open-world exploratory Springfield that we're probably ever going to get. My viewers will know I've reviewed Hit and Run before. Now, my opinion on the game hasn't changed. While there's a predominant focus on collectathon missions and the on-foot controls are incredibly basic, the driving controls and missions are generally of a high standard, and I believe it to be one of the best video game outings for the people of Springfield to date, as evidenced by its appraisal over the years by gamers and Simpsons fans alike. The Simpsons Game, meanwhile, doesn't get the attention it deserves in my opinion. I'm yet to review this game, but at some point I intend to shed some light on it. It's a solid action-adventure platformer with only a handful of shortcomings, and the inclusion of an open-world Springfield in a PS3 release is something worth exploring.
But the question is, which of these games truly puts the spring in Springfield?
We put the spring in Springfield.
Yeah, it's Hit and Run. Bye! See you next time! Yes, but we all know it's Hit and Run. I even said so in my review. But why?
To answer this question, we first need to address some key differences.
Please do go on.
As for Hit and Run, I first need to explain some things for those who aren't familiar with this game.
Seriously, what have you been doing all this time?
For one thing, Hit and Run Springfield is divided into 3 separate zones, accessible via different levels, rather than one singular open world. The opening Homer level lets you explore Evergreen Terrace and the surrounding neighborhood, while the following Bart level takes place in downtown Springfield. Meanwhile, the Lisa level depicts the Squidport tourist area, as well as some surrounding recognizable landmarks. Subsequent levels simply see you return to these locations with some minor differences in these later stages. As such, I'm not going to talk about these variations in later levels too much, unless of course they permit access to noteworthy areas which were previously inaccessible, such as Burns' mansion in level 4.
Excellent.
Now, although the Simpsons game Springfield is available in one large map, and therefore presumably advantageous, it's decidedly much more limited in scale. But I believe both Springfields are worth seeing for different reasons. First, I want to talk about the Simpsons house, which is expectedly present in both games. Unlike Springfield generally, the house has a set map, and both depictions are accurate. In level 1 of Hit and Run, however, you can only enter the living room, where you can activate the TV and see whatever the hell's going on in the kitchen today.
Ah, a leprechaun.
It's not until level 4 when you can access Bart's bedroom from around the back, in the most awkward way. I think I'd be a bit scared myself if my mom started climbing through my window, but okay.
Yeah, Marge, normal people tend to use the stairs, just saying.
Now, as for the Simpsons game, we actually get to explore the house in its entirety, which is pretty cool, and is one of the game's many highlights. That said, I do think that the scale of the rooms in Hit and Run were more accurate. Bart and Lisa's rooms, for example, seem far too spacious to me, and it's lacking the same homely vibe as seen in Hit and Run, simply because it's rather bare by comparison. Even so, I think the Simpsons game wins this round, as it's the most perfect representation of the Simpsons house that I've ever seen. And I only have one other complaint, which is admittedly kinda nitpicky, and that's that the car in the garage is the wrong colour, and that goes for both the PS2 and PS3 copies of the game.
Boy, I really hope somebody got fired for that blunder.
The PS2 version also has an extra detail in the front room. Since it's presented from a different camera angle to the PS3 version, you can see the family piano, and not only that, you can jump on the keys and they make a sound. It's really nothing too special, of course, but a nice touch nonetheless. The PS3 version, however, contains a room exclusive to it, as you can use Marge to deploy Maggie and access Maggie's room. Offhand, the only other rooms I can think of that aren't seen here are the basement and the attic. Otherwise, it's all here to my recollection, which is fairly impressive. Now, as for the rest of Springfield, this is the last you're going to see of the PS2 copy. There are a handful of levels that take place in areas around Springfield, but in the PS2 version, they're all disconnected. There's no free-roaming Springfield here. The closest we get is a Marge and Lisa level which takes us across Springfield to the town hall, but this is a far more linear experience than what I'm looking for. Besides the Simpsons' backyard, there are no other places you can explore freely outside of the main levels. Before we switch over to the PS3 game though, I just want to acknowledge Santa's little helper here. When you go up to his doghouse, he purposely puts on a brave face in light of the alien invasion.
Yeah, there's an alien invasion in this game. I neglected to mention that, as you do.
But if you step away from him, he starts cowering and shivering, suggesting he's actually terrified. Well, wouldn't you be? I just thought this was a cute detail that they added. Meanwhile, in a PS3 game, Santa's little helper is nowhere to be seen.
Where are you, boy?
By comparison, Hit and Run contains more interactivity in the backyard thanks to the level's gag features. I won't be discussing absolutely every gag in the game, but they really do help make the setting feel more alive.
We're waiting for the apocalypse.
As for Evergreen Terrace, Hit and Run's layout is frankly outstanding. And I know this is a driving game, but even just walking around here is a lot of fun.
Granted, that's partly helped by kicking loads of children.
Bully!
Honestly, that never gets old.
There are only a few select places you can enter, but the detail is something to behold. The Quickie Mart is full of interactive gags and episode references.
Freezer burn on my beard.
Not to mention the fact that there's a secret garden on a roof seen in Lisa the Vegetarian.
I'm Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Man.
By comparison, the Simpsons Game Quickie Mart is rather lifeless and empty. You can still talk to Apu, but that's just about it.
Hello, Mr. Homer. How low is it hanging?
No garden on the roof here.
What? What are you thinking? Thank you. I'll come again.
Another place you can enter in Hit and Run is Springfield Elementary, which is cool but limited. You can't enter any classrooms, you're restricted to the one corridor.
Come on. While we're young.
The Simpsons Game school is a lot more impressive. You can even enter a classroom and beat up Miss Hoover.
Why does beating people up bring me such joy? I'm a monster.
But there's one major drawback with this game for me, and that's the locations of these buildings. Now, both Springfields are notably condensed to some extent. There are locations seen in Hit and Run, for example, that are only a short drive away from your house, when in the show they were depicted as being much further away. All the same, I really feel as though they did a much better job conveying a virtual Springfield in the sense that it's a lot more believable, despite the fact that you can't access all locations in a single map. You might not be able to drive from your house directly to Moe's Tavern, but hey, at least Moe's is situated in a logical location. In the Simpsons game, Moe's appears to be on the waterfront, and not only that, it's directly next to the Sleep Easy Motel for some bizarre reason, which isn't accurate in the slightest.
What?
The interior of Moe's Tavern is fairly well done. Again, it's lacking the interactivity of Hit and Run, but as a location replica, it's damn near spot on.
Hey, looking good, you big piece of crap.
It's kinda weird how Barney and Moe just keep pacing around here though. In Hit and Run, you just get to see the barflies guzzling their duff. It's not particularly exciting, but it helps to convey a more fitting ambience for what's considered to be a dank pit.
Natural light! Get it off me! Get it off me!
Now, obviously, over the years, the layout of Springfield has been gradually metamorphosing, and they're certainly not above changing the locations of certain buildings for the purposes of conveying a good visual gag. But the layout of this town is questionable to me. While it's nonetheless cool to walk around, there are some striking oddities, including the fact that the retirement castle where Grandpa lives is just a few houses away from the Simpsons house.
This game makes no sense.
And the location of the school is also problematic, as it's literally in the next street. This frankly makes no sense, as in the show, the kids were often seen taking the bus or carpooling. You can even see your house from the school here. Are we to believe they're too lazy to walk just a few meters?
Well, I guess Springfield was named the world's fattest town for a reason.
One thing, there are too many fat children.
One of the most memorable locations of Hit and Run's opening level is the power plant. A location which is absent from the Simpsons game aside from appearing in background shots. There's a level that takes place in the vicinity of the plant, but not inside the plant itself. Meanwhile, Hit and Run not only depicts the external cooling towers, but you can also venture inside and explore Homer's workstation, Sector 7G. You cannot explore Mr. Burns' mansion in this level, but you can access its back garden, where we find the human chess pieces.
Come back, fools! Protect me!
Once we progress to level 4, however, the gates of the mansion are now open, and we're free to explore the interior of Burns' mansion, although it's a lot more compacted than it is in the episodes.
Let's see what this does.
Otherwise, there aren't many differences in terms of the setting compared to level 1. But what about level 7? This level is a Treehouse of Horror theme level, and while the references to the episodes are high in abundance and rich in detail, it's essentially a mere palette change, and as such I won't be talking about it too much. Again, it's basically a rehash of the first location, only smaller and with Halloween themed decoration, including pumpkins, ghosts, and... oh no.
Whoa, now hang on. That spider isn't an enemy. It doesn't hurt you. It doesn't count. Oh, what the hell?
Minimal as they may be though, there are some new locations worth mentioning. Most notably, we get to ascend some girders at the power plant as an alien spaceship has collided with the building. This allows us to explore the interior of Mr. Burns' office. That is, if the trapdoors let us.
Ooh,
The painters moved your desk, sir.
Oh, yes.
Hit and Run contains a lot more references to the classic episodes too.
Wow, get a load of that toilet.
There are so many, in fact, that I can't possibly compile them all into this video. For Simpsons fanatics, the attention to detail is admirable. Downtown Springfield is particularly impressive to me, including several landmarks seen only in Marge vs. the Monorail, like the giant magnifying glass, the building made of popsicle sticks, and the escalator to nowhere. Oh, and that's not to mention the monorail itself, the front end of which you can actually drive.
Mono, don't!
I also thought it was a nice touch that the building made of sticks has completely burnt down by Apu's level. It's details such as these and the many gags dotted throughout the levels that makes Hit and Run feel more lively. By comparison, despite a large amount of recognizable faces and humorous dialogue, the Simpsons game Springfield feels more like a ghost town, more so than this one.
Boo.
There's no real atmosphere and it feels altogether rather stale and lifeless, much like the show these days.
Yeah, I went there.
I never realized how boring this game is.
This level in Hit and Run also features the try and save.
Try and save. Oh, my teapots are ready.
And the DMV, which is another building you can go inside.
Tough luck, folks. I don't feel like moving the line today.
There are many other buildings directly referencing the show, but no more that you can enter. Oh, and as a side note, while you cannot enter the General Hospital, you do at least get to speak with Dr. Hibbert later in the game, although I personally felt that they missed a golden opportunity here in failing to add one of his trademark chuckles when you kick him. Just imagine how great that would be if he just chuckled.
Such a wasted opportunity.
You can't enter the Museum of Natural History, although you do get to see its interior in a cutscene in the Apu level. In the Simpsons game, there is a level that takes place inside the museum, and it's interesting to walk around here, especially for the diorama sequence.
One of the traits that sets our human forefathers apart was the emergence of the four-fingered hand we know today.
But once again, this is not part of the free roaming feature, and the building cannot be re-entered after having finished said level.
Aw, what a jip.
Compared to Hit and Run, the Simpsons game doesn't contain nearly so many references, or indeed interactivity, though there are a handful of buildings you can enter that you could not enter before, including the church and the police station.
Got my eye on you, Simpson.
The church in particular is an almost perfect replica of the building from the show.
Praise the Lord.
The most similar location to Hit and Run is arguably the town square. Both games feature the statue of Jebediah Springfield, complete with the famous quote, "A noble spirit and Biggins the smallest man."
Biggins? I never heard that word before I moved to Springfield.
I don't know why. It's a perfectly cromulent word.
The placement of Planet Hype in the town square is one of this Springfield's biggest oddities. It just looks so out of place here. Meanwhile, Hit and Run accurately placed this building in the Squidport tourist area on the waterfront. There are also other buildings situated nearby that weren't specifically located in this area in the show, but this location seems a lot more fitting for these places than the town centre.
Makes sense.
Speaking of the Squidport, Hit and Run contains many more familiar places here.
Malaria Zone. That's where all the explorers shop.
Including a number of seldom seen locations from the show.
The Spaghetti Laboratory.
There's also the lighthouse from the episode, El Viaje Misterioso de Nuestro Homer.
I sincerely apologize for that pronunciation. Let's move on quickly, please.
And not only that, in level 6, we also get to see Homer's silhouette.
Hey, look, is that Dad? Either that or Batman's really let himself go.
Various other references to the series include the Springfield Dam, Camp Krusty, and the Observatory, which you're free to enter and interact with. There's also the Monty Burns Casino here, despite the fact that it was demolished in the show.
Don Rickles dinged you, Marge.
Level 6 also references Lance Murdoch's obstacle course from Vegas.
Over the dog do stick.
One of this level's highlights is Krusty Lou Studios, which not only contains a set for the Krusty the Clown show, but also the new studio and a set of the panel show Smartline.
S-M-R-T. I mean S-M-A-R-T.
Another location visited in both games is the comic book store, and I have to say they're both pretty impressive, though I actually have to give credit to the Simpsons game for featuring the secret video room from the worst episode ever.
Worst episode ever.
What also makes the Simpsons game's comic book store better is the ability to punch the fat kid and make him run away screaming. Classic.
Don't make me run! I'm full of chocolate!
Overall, it's probably not surprising to you, but I find Hit and Run is a better depiction of Springfield. Of course, the sheer scale of Hit and Run means there are obviously going to be more callbacks to the episodes, but deciding which Springfield is better is harder than you'd think. The Simpsons Game is a solid attempt at creating a fleshed out open world Springfield, and I might complain that some of these buildings are in obscure locations, but at the very least they did their research and adapted these buildings from the episodes, as opposed to having a generic layout with few recognizable areas. But it's the placement of these buildings that makes Hit and Run's replica of Springfield much more convincing, and as such I think it wins overall. My only complaint is that it's divided into 3 separate locations, accessible linearly via the levels, but this isn't anything that could be helped considering the age of the game. What's more, recently someone has actually modified the game so that all the levels now connect, which is seriously cool.
Ay, caramba!
Much as I appreciate the Simpsons Game for its attempt, Hit and Run is of course nothing short of
excellent.
Hey everyone, thanks for watching once again. I know this probably felt like a different video to usual, but I wanted something smaller to work on before I get going on some new requests. That, and I wanted to do a follow-up to my Hit and Run review because I didn't really feel like I got much of a chance to discuss why I appreciate the game's location so much. Anyway, hope you enjoyed. I'll be back soon with another probably terrible movie game. I'll see you then. Bye-bye for now.